it! I'm Coy Jandro, a Bostonian who loves pop culture, comic books, and people. And I host Coycast. It's a podcast about all those things. If it fits in on a con floor, we talk about it on Coycast. Myself and producer Jake do previews, reviews, deep dives, and tinfoil hat theories about everything from movies, TV, and the comic books themselves. I also like to dish out comic recommendations from my 100-plus pull list a week so you know what's best to buy. So join us, True Believer, on Coycast.com or wherever you're listening to this podcast right now.
It's the greatest mystery in literary history. A divisive question with highly contested answers. Who was the writer behind the pen name William Shakespeare? Welcome to Don't Quill the Messenger. Here's your host, Steven Sable.
Welcome back, Quiller Nation, to Don't Quill the Messenger, your favorite Shakespearean podcast. You know, before I introduce today's guest, just want to conduct a little bit of business. Remember, go to don'tquillthepodcast.com, don'tquillthepodcast.com. That's where you will find all of the wonderful things that you need to become a patron of the show. If you click on the Patreon link, it'll take you to the various levels, and you can select a level that is right for you. Don't forget, certain select levels get certain select privileges, and so you'll want to examine those and see which one works best for you. Also, if you go to the website, you can find the swag shop. New swag merchandise is coming on the way. I talked with producer Jake, and we're designing a couple of new items, some new shirts, and some other fun things. So if you would like to wear your Quiller swag with pride, go to the swag shop, and remember that all proceeds do help benefit the program. I'm thrilled to be sitting here with today's guest. He is an independent filmmaker. His name is Blair Murphy. He reached out to me because he became a listener of the podcast. We exchanged some emails back and forth, and I discovered that he's actually making a film about the Shakespeare authorship question. And I am privileged enough to have been interviewed by him for the movie. And as quid pro quo would have it, here he is returning the favor and is a guest on the program. Blair, welcome.
It's great this is wild, actually, from listening to you on the radio and now being here. So thank you.
Well, I'm flattered. I hope that you're not too tongue-tied so that you can still answer some questions. The first thing I want to ask you about is some of your history as a filmmaker. When did you first get into filmmaking? Tell me about some of your earlier work.
My whole life I made Super 8 movies as a little kid, and then I moved to Los Angeles, and I made some. I made a super low budget, very noble but kind of goofy vampire movie called Jugular Wine, and then I made a zombie movie, and so I come out of low budget horror is what my background is.
So you're kind of like Ed Wood Jr. Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, you're listening right now to yes, absolutely. So picture Johnny Depp sitting here and.
Okay, well, I'm certain that my listeners can relate to that. So sort of Ed Wood meets Steven Spielberg, huh, with the Super 8 stuff?
Yeah. Steven Spielberg actually I came from a town called Haddonfield, which is the Haddonfield from the Halloween movies, but it's Haddonfield, New Jersey, not Haddonfield, Illinois. Mm-hmm. And the Deborah Hill, who went to my high school, hated the town, so she sent a killer back to it. And then the town wouldn't let her film there, so they created the fake Haddonfield, Illinois, but Steven Spielberg's from the edge of that town. He lived there when he was a little kid for a little while. So his career went one way.
Well, now that you are embracing the topic of the Shakespeare authorship question, your meteoric rise to stardom is definite. There is no doubt. So tell me, though, when you first decided that you were going to make a Shakespeare film, was the initial intent that it was going to be about the authorship question?
No.
Or how did that come about?
Not in the least. Actually, I just wanted to get away with a little reel, like 2 minutes long, of any play to reinsert myself back into filmmaking. I'd moved out of LA for a little bit, and a producer who I was pitching to said, put together a little reel. So I was just trying to cheat my way into some footage that looked good. And I was I didn't know anything about Shakespeare. I thought I'm just going to wing it. I picked Midsummer Night's Dream because it was enchanting to me, but I really have no background in Shakespeare. And when I put together a cast, they let me know that. They were all like, this is the only idiot in the room. He doesn't know the first thing about Shakespeare. And I remember saying I disliked the ending of, there were certain things that stood out to me. And in Midsummer Night's Dream, the ending, I didn't like it. I thought the play within the play, I felt there was something wrong with it. It felt weaker to me. It didn't feel as profound. Like I thought slapstick shouldn't follow more profound dialogue. And so it was needling at me. And I remember the actors saying like, he's just going to put a band there or something instead of the using, like I was talking about, let's write something else. And it really was going badly. Like my crew, my cast didn't even want to finish the production with me. So one time I said to the universe, can you throw me a bone of something with distinction where my footage will, because how do you compete with these $1 million productions? Just anything that's going to make my footage different. And I had a dream. And it had two parts to the dream. I'm not going to talk about the first part because that's the first half of this bigger movie I'm working on.
Okay.
But I'll talk about the second part.
Okay.
And it's been a fascinating journey. And like everything got wrecked. I couldn't just do a little teeny production. I had to explore and ask these questions. And that's what led me to meeting you. And so I ended up filming a lot of Shakespeare oriented stuff first. And then when I wrote you about De Vere, it just answered a lot of questions and changed everything. So,
well, that's exciting. So instead of, I'm curious, I want to backtrack a little bit because you say, okay, you wanted to get some good footage. So you decided, okay, I'll do a Shakespeare play. Of course, it's free. There's no licensing requirements or copyright and all that, which makes it good. So you kind of went, to throw in another famous director reference, you kind of went the Orson Welles direction of, well, I'm going to get together a bunch of Shakespearean actors and make a Shakespeare movie. And because, Welles did that quite famously, successfully
Heidi,
too, with several very good productions. Well, but the difference is he went and found an already established Shakespeare company of actors and who had things like costumes and all that already, and then just found a location and said, okay, we're going to all film this Shakespeare play on this location over the next few days. It sounds like you went out and recruited different actors from different places. And did you have to costume them yourself and, and all of that?
We had nothing. We did it on my front porch for the town, and the town wasn't into it. They voted, and somebody voted no in the council that they thought it was a bad idea to get free Shakespeare in the park. And so, and then
you're breaking my heart right now.
I didn't have costumes.
This town needs a curse upon it.
There was no set design or anything. So all that, the actors were like, are you kidding me? And so then they were forced to sort of manifest it all but I was only looking to get a couple shots. I didn't really care about the whole production. Now I do. Instead of using that reel to get a film, this became the film. This is the film that I'm making. So
do you remember what it was or when it was that suddenly you were introduced to or discovered the Shakespeare authorship question, or was your discovery of Edward de Vere, 17th Earl of Oxford, your discovery of the Shakespeare authorship question? Like how did that happen?
Well, I didn't know, I really knew nothing about Shakespeare. And so I decided, like any other author who I'm into, I would research everything possible. And first thing was there weren't any letters. I couldn't, and then when I read every play, I read all of them, and they all felt so personal to me, and as if each one was tied. I started thinking, did Shakespeare sleep with Queen Elizabeth? That's what I'm on some intuitive level. I'm feeling like this was her lover, and then I started studying Queen Elizabeth and Cecil and all them, and nothing matched up. And so I'd heard about, I think, the Shakespeare question, the authorship question, but it wasn't something that entered into my world. And I used to work for Prince, by the way, and so Prince died without a will, from what I remember, and so the idea of maybe Shakespeare died without a will too, and things didn't seem so odd at first. But then it was right around the time I found your show that it all hit me like a ton of bricks. And then I had one or two questions which I asked you about his son, and you answered them, you clarified them, and then there was no going back. I mean, there's just no going back.
I think it's very intriguing and very interesting, and I hope my listeners are making note of this, that as a pure lay person to Shakespeare, who decided to start studying the works of Shakespeare from a completely different direction than most people. Most people, it's, starts off in middle school or high school and so forth. Not having any of that kind of foundation in front of you, or an educator, quote unquote, force feeding you their version of Shakespeare or who their Shakespeare is. It's really intriguing to me that as you're reading the plays, and that's a lot of reading, 37 plays, and did you read the sonnets and the poems too?
No, I didn't go for the sonnets.
Just the play. So it's still, going through a canon of 37 plays, some would say 38 if you count Two Nobles Kinsmen, which I don't. For you to touch on and start to get this sense that there was an intimate relationship between the author and the Queen of England is pretty incredible to me. And I think something that people should make note of, that it's there. It's so evident and so prevalent. And as you said, so personal in the canon and in the context of the plays that it can't help but bleed through to, especially to another artist. And I think that's probably the perspective that helped you to find that and see that.
Yes, I would say to anyone, I'm not a scholar and I'm very naive in the scholastic aspect. I came in entirely as an artist, and every question I asked was from the perspective of an artist. Like, would I do that, or how would I have done that different, or what would I, if I was an artist, what would I be trying to sneak in here, or what would I be trying to get away with in deeper levels, like if I was dealing with metaphors and stuff, and so it was. I have no scholastic background in Shakespeare whatsoever.
That doesn't matter. That what you're proving here is that doesn't matter when it comes to seeing and finding the truth. In fact, it might actually serve you better as you move forward in your journey of inquiry to have not had any of that scholastic background. It's almost like there are no bad habits to break for you. As a producer, director, and a theater educator, I can't tell you, I've worked with literally thousands of actors from at every age level and at every level of ability. And I'm very fond of saying a stage for every age and level of ability is one of my goals in life, to create and to provide opportunities. And children and young people tend to embrace Shakespearean works and characters easier, faster, and better than seasoned actors who have not had any Shakespeare training, but who decide that they're going to try Shakespeare. And it's a big part of it is kids don't know how hard it is. So I like to give this analogy. A kid can ride a bicycle across the top of a picket fence, and then he learns about gravity and immediately falls off. Right. And it's the same thing with Shakespeare with young people or people who are new to it, is there's no stigma about it. Mm-hmm. That's already pre-established. None of those bad habits exist. So you're actually coming to it almost with the mind of a child in a sense, in that you have no preconceived notions and no English literature professor that you grew up with through high school who beat his Shakespeare into your head. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I had no idea about all the even just the camps of Shakespeareans versus Oxfordians. To this hour, I still don't quite. I haven't really cared one way or the other about it, to be honest with you, because that's not going to sway my own opinions are my opinions, and so neither are going to. I mean, I hope I don't look dumb, but that wouldn't sway me in any way, and I don't have a single relationship that would pressure me.
Well, there are some people, and I consider myself to be in this camp, and I think there are more and more people who are discovering the Shakespeare authorship question who are agreeing with this concept that I'm about to share right now, which is, who gives a shit what the Stratfordians think about us or about anything? The truth is the truth is the truth. I don't care what they say about me or my podcast series or about the organizations I'm affiliated with or the scholars who are my friends and the work that they do. I don't care what they have to say. That doesn't change truth. It doesn't affect me. Yeah. I'm not doing what I'm doing to convince them. That's a lost cause. There's no point to that. That's like trying to convert the Pope to become a Lutheran. So Why? Why even bother? And we need to stop wasting our time trying to convince Stratfordians that they should stop being Stratfordians. Let them be Stratfordians. NASA doesn't spend time convincing flat earthers that the earth is round.
Yeah.
They don't waste a single dollar on that. They don't put any of their energy towards that. They allow the flat earthers to just go on being flat earthers. And I believe that Oxfordians need to adapt and adopt that philosophy as well, and stop worrying about what the Stratfordians think, say, or how much money they're making off of their false mythology.
Do they worry about that a lot? Because I don't really know that.
Too
either.
many of them do.
Right.
And, I've said before on this program, I think part of the problem with some of the scholars in the Oxfordian movement is they are so concerned with trying to prove themselves to the Stratfordian establishment, to the halls of academia, to be accepted among their colleagues and their peers who have all these letters after their names. That's a waste of time. You know who I'm more worried about impressing? I'm more worried about impressing the 16-year-old high school student who is interested in Shakespeare, doesn't know a lot about it, but wants to learn more. That's who I want to impress. That's who I'm going after. And the more of those people we convince, those old people with the letters after their names, they're going to die off and be gone anyway. We need a grassroots movement that embraces the new and the young. And it doesn't even matter how young, because you're not a young man. I'm not going to throw you under the bus and say how old you are, but you're not a young man. But like I said before, you've come to this with the open-mindedness of a young person because you're new to it. And that's the people we need to be focusing on.
Well, I hope my theories meet some of your approval.
I hope they will too. And I'll tell you what, regardless of whether your theories do meet with my approval or anyone else's approval, as long as you produce a film that is entertaining and accessible, it's a win for all of us. And that's the position I take. And that's where I come from.
Well, I don't want it to be the Ed Wood Shakespeare film, but
you mean you're not going to have like zombies or vampires running around in the movie?
No, and that's definitely my background for sure. But which made it even more unlikely that I would be making this movie. So says all my actors who don't quite know what I'm up to now, because I stopped talking about my theories with them while I was putting this together.
Well, if you need someone to play the ghost of Edward de Vere, let me know. I'll step in and
okay.
And I'll.
Well, you kind of are now in this movie.
I'll be the ghost of Edward de Vere and haunt the modern actors who are trying to study the Shakespeare authorship question for you or for the other actors in the play. But I know that we've talked before and that you've heard me mention that, and this kind of connects to your background. I am very proud of the fact that 3 different times I have produced Titus Andronicus as a vampire story. So we do have that in common.
That sounds great. I would like to. I'd enjoy that, I think, very much.
The reason why I've done it 3 times is because it was a success and audiences really embraced it. I turned it into a 90-minute one act, like no intermission, straight through. I've done it in a small black box theater, and I've done it on a big grand proscenium. It did not work on the big grand proscenium. It's too distanced. It's too large. It needs to be intimate, dark, enclosed. The audience needs to be in the presence of the Romans and the Goths, as it were. And it works extremely well under those conditions, to the point where I would probably be willing to do it again sometime.
So,
you're off your mic.
Am I?
There you go.
Okay. So, should I just dive in?
Yeah.
Okay. One thing I gave myself permission for is if you're laughing at a Shakespeare comedy, there's not really a wrong way to enjoy a Shakespeare play. So when I was doing this research, I thought, even if I'm in the wrong, this led me to a fascinating journey, and I had a great couple of years out of it. And so I'll just tell you what I came up with. And your listeners might be like, this guy, go back to Ed Wood world, but we'll see. Okay, so
I think you'll find that my listeners are a lot more accepting and open-minded than people might think. And I say this all the time: my listeners are not the scholars. I don't design this show for the top upper echelon scholars in the world of Shakespeare authorship question. P.S. We already have those people.
Yeah.
They're not converts we need. That's preaching to the choir. I'm seeking those listeners who have that open mind, who come to this sometimes by accident and get intrigued and decide that they enjoy hearing about it, they enjoy learning about it, and that my podcast hopefully makes it somewhat entertaining from time to time.
Well, I would say that you just come across as a nice guy. That's part of what I'm doing here. I wrote a lot of scholars, and I remember writing the Folger Institute, and then wrote them a second time, the third time, and I wrote them 27 times before they even responded, and then the response was no, and Folger Library, and so you right off the bat answered my question on an email, and it helped me so much. And then you said, come on out, and here I am. And so,
well, and see, there you go, Quiller Nation. I am not lying when I tell you I answer every email. So if you want to contact me, you can send me an email to contact@don'tquillthepodcast.com. Contact@don'tquillthepodcast.com, and I will respond. Here's testimony right here that tells you I will respond to your emails.
Okay. So should I go into?
Yes. Tell me about what's happening in your film that you can share that's not a spoiler alert or isn't going to give it away before it's released.
Okay. Well, I've had several dreams, and this is not uncommon for me. This has happened in my life with other things, but I had a couple Shakespeare dreams, and one of them said, part one was, here's a Rosetta Stone in the folio to find. Go here to this paragraph. I'm not going to go into it, and it will open a lot of doors up, and it did. That's the first half of my film. Then part two of the dream said, fly over the play Midsummer Night's Dream and look down on it like you're looking at geometric shapes, not the drama, but the structure from above. And that will lead you in another direction. So I'm going to talk about that part.
Okay.
Love
it. Let's hear it.
So I'm picking up now in the middle of my film, and there's I'm not sure how much out there of other people have made a connection to John the Baptist with Midsummer Night, but I believe there's I think we're looking at John the Baptist, and I'll go into that a bit. Okay, so if you're looking at Renaissance works of art, the where there's a mistake, like a tile's wrong or something in the architecture, that's the tile you push and the secret door opens up. And it's the same in some of the literature. And so the first thing I saw when I was looking at Midsummer Night's Dream in the first folio was the word night at the top of every page is a small n that doesn't start with a capital letter. All the other letters are capitalized. So that made me thinking, wow, what if it was there's another letter that's missing, like a K in front of it? Midsummer Night. Well, who's the Midsummer Night? Well, that would be John the Baptist, whose holiday is the 26th of June. And Jesus is the other half of the year. And so then I was thinking, okay, maybe let's just go with this.
That's the date that Edward de Vere died, by the way.
Yes. So then I was thinking, well, maybe there's something to John the Baptist in this play. So then Bottom walks out, and the first thing he says is, let's bring this thing to a point. And John the Baptist is always painted as the pointer. He's pointing the way toward the higher power, to Christ. And then John the Baptist wore furs and was eating funny figs and things like that in real life. And then we got Bottom doing that at one point. And then at one point they say, take off this head, just like John the Baptist was beheaded. So I started screaming like, okay, I'm on to something here. So then I exposed a little bit of this film to some Renaissance professors in my area. And they were like, don't tell anyone you are onto something. This is fascinating. We'd never heard this before. And there might be a lot of Oxfordians already with this belief that John the Baptist is part of the play, hidden within the play. But
there may be, but I can tell you this is the first that I've heard.
Are you kidding me?
No, sir. I'm not kidding you. Why would I lie to you?
Well, that's kind of neat for me.
I mean, there have been other references that I am aware of Edward de Vere connected to John the Baptist and having an affinity for John the Baptist. And there are some that believe that Edward de Vere didn't really die on June 26th, that it was too coincidental that he would die on the date of John the Baptist's feast day. But I have not heard this deconstruction of A Midsummer Night's Dream before.
Well, that's neat for me. Okay, so let me continue now.
It's all making sense. I'm with you. I'm following. Keep going.
Okay, so there's so in the sonnets he says, I built monuments. Okay, so I was looking at this as, what if this is a structure that we could walk through? Okay, in Luxor there's one of the temples. It's a structure of a man. You enter through the feet and you walk through it, and you eventually end up at the head. And then, like the old cathedrals in Europe, there's Christ is on the roof, and you come through the feet and you head toward the head. And so I thought to myself, I'm getting that feeling in that intuition. Now, John the Baptist is connected to the Hangman tarot card, but there's no there's no tarot cards in England at that time period. It's not like, I've interviewed all these tarot people, and they're like, there's nothing in the British Museum. The tarot cards didn't come into England until the 1800s. Tarot cards started in Italy, and oh wait, what? Italy? But De Vere was down in Italy. So maybe let's just go with this for a minute. Okay. So here's the Hangman card. I'm holding it in front of.
I'm very familiar with that card. In fact, I have a fantastic tarot deck that my mother bought me. That is the Shakespeare tarot deck, and the Hanged Man in that deck is Hamlet.
Okay, but that's not what I'm talking about, though. Like, I know, I'm aware of that deck too, but that's something created long after the fact that
But a lot of people say Hamlet was Edward de Vere.
I believe that. Yeah.
So is the Hanged Man Edward?
Yes, I think that we're looking at. I think that right here you're looking at an autobiography, a geometrical autobiography of de Vere.
Okay, I'm with you.
Which was then written out as Midsummer Night's Dream.
Okay.
So Hangman is upside down there. So the Hangman, the head's down here. So in order to enter through the feet like we do with these other structures, we'd have to turn it around. So we're going into the Hangman reversed. Okay. Now the Hangman is card number 12, XII. Follow me?
Yes.
But if we reverse it, what's going on here? It looks like IIX, which would mean 8. Right in the first line of the play, she says, in 4 nights and 4 days, and the math does not add up. There's a mistake there. People are saying all these years later, like, why is the math wrong? The play is not 4 days long. It's funny how the math is wrong, but if you add the 4 and the 4, it means the number 8. So maybe that's entering the Hangman upside down is the number 8. Maybe that's a clue. I don't know. We'll see. So
4 days will quickly steep themselves into night. 4 nights and the moon through her silvery bow, something is what Hippolyta says about how fast it will be before they get to their wedding day.
So we're entering, to try to describe this, we're entering into the Hangman card to walk up the body, but the card has to be upside down for the head to be at the far side. So the foot is the short scene with Hippolyta and Theseus. And then we have the scene where they argue is the calf, with the father comes in and says, my daughter, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the knee is True Love Never
Run Smooth.
Of
course, the True Love Never did run smooth.
Where you
yes.
have a bend. And then with foot number 2, we come in with the mechanicals. And when we reach right here at the groin, we're at Oberon coming out and screaming. And what's right there? The first chakra. Follow me with this.
Okay.
So that's the first time we hear the word Indian. We're talking about Indian culture. Okay.
Oh yes. Well, no, she does. Where hast thou come from the farthest step of India, except your warrior love and buxom mistress must be to Theseus wedded. What
we're gonna go from this point forward up the chest are chakras. The first one is I was on he's describing these beautiful Hindu chakras. When she says I was on the beach, I was on the sand, and the sails. That's earth, first chakra, the root chakra. The next one, the root sea, that's the second chakra, and we go up and we've got the heart chakra, and then we've got and so there's the reference to a snake over and over again. The snake, she wakes up with her heart. The snake earlier, I know where there's a place where she sleeps, and the snake weed wide enough. That's Kundalini energy rising up the body with the snake. Okay, just go with me on this. Okay?
I'm following you completely. My wife is going to love this episode.
You guys were very close when you did an Indian episode.
We did. We did a version of this play with a Hindu theme.
So your intuition was right on. But you did the characters as opposed to the structure.
You're right.
But
right.
anyway, your intuition was very
but
right.
Her whole costume was a entire body. Her whole body was hennaed, including all the chakras up and down her spine.
Yeah. So I wish I had seen that. So then when we get to the heart, we're at the heart chakra. We're in her nest, and she's Hail Mortal and all that. But it's not just like a moment. These are big spiraling things that are painted beautifully in Shakespeare's word. By the time we get to the neck, we're at bottom waking up saying, I can't say.
The heart hath not, the hand hath not. He messes up Proverbs there. He's quoting from the Bible, but he's jacking it all up there.
Yeah. Then we get to the third eye. What is that? That's in Hamlet. He says, I would make a prologue to my brain, Hamlet says. And here in the play, when they're making the prologue, that's entering into a brain. So when we go inside, Pyramus and Thisbe are right brain, left brain.
Oh.
And the wall between is the cerebral follics.
Interesting. The cerebral folks. And that's that thing that they say men have that women don't have, right? That separation between left and right brain. When women's connection is thicker, wider than men's. They're able to process thought on both sides at the same time. And we can only do one side at a time.
So I'm not the first person to say, oh, look, there's brains in Renaissance works that we're just discovering all this time later. That in the Sistine Chapel, God is on top of this like purpley kind of blanket, and that's a brain. And God's arms coming out through his third eye, if it was a head. And that's just been discovered in the last 20 years. But yet we've been looking at it for 400 years.
And of course, De Vere would have been there. He would have visited there.
So I see this as a body. We're going up, and that there's oodles of details within there as well.
No, are there any other John the Baptist connections that you've discovered, or are you keeping those secret until your film comes out?
Well, some of it I'm keeping a little secret, and some of it I'm questioning it. I haven't slept yet, so I'm wondering, am I missing stuff that I should be saying that's good? So here, I'll tell you something.
But I love this this tarot connection and this Indian Hindi connection, and it certainly does bespeak a world traveler and someone who had access to and was capable of studying all of these different world religions and mystical aspects of the universe that certainly the guy in the Grain Man in Stratford was never going to have access to and could have never conceived.
Yeah. I think maybe as a scholar, you might not be looking for some things that a mystic would be looking for. And for instance, in the very beginning, she says, like a bow bent in heaven, and I don't think she's talking about like the reference of a bow and arrow. I think she's referring to in Genesis when God says, "I'll put a bow in heaven, and it's a rainbow." As a form of my commitment.
Well, but it's also metaphorical for the moon, right? It was the sliver of the moon looking like a new bow bent in heaven, right?
So this whole play is about change. That the Metamorphosis by Ovid was a huge influence, and the moon is referenced over and over and over again, and the moon changes, and the whole play is about change. So I believe that we go in to the Hangman card reversed. And by the time we reach the crown chakra, we've the card has changed. And
of course, the Hanged Man is representative not of actual death or dying. It's representative of indecision. It's representative of having a major decision to make and being torn between two sides or being entangled in that decision and not being able to act, which is why in the Shakespeare deck, they depict Hamlet as the hanged man, because he is frozen by his own inaction because of his concern that the ghost might be the workings of the devil as opposed to the actual spirit of his father. And he doesn't know what to do, and he's not sure, and he's entangled in this intrigue, this mess. And so the entanglement here in Midsummer Night's Dream is multifold. One part of it is the queen was entangled in this marriage proposal to the French Duke, who is lampooned and satired throughout the whole play. But also there's the entanglement of this boy and whether or not this boy should be recognized for who he really is.
Yes.
To the
she
players.
says not for the whole kingdom will I hand it over.
Right.
But then later the kingdom is restored and she does hand him over to Oberon
Right.
and all is well. Okay, here's another one. So I think the most important question in this play is, what is Pyramus? It's like, what is Sylvia? He says, what is Pyramus when he's asking? But I think it's a huge thing.
A lover or a tyrant?
And I think that Pyramus is on a different level, the rising of Kundalini energy on a national level. An example of, like they say, what happens if he doesn't show up? Then the play's over. It doesn't go forward, and they say no. He's got to be the guy. He's the only one that can discharge Pyramus.
No man can discharge Pyramus better than he.
Okay, so let's.
Peter Quint says that.
Here's a dig for at the. So I started out reading all these Folgers editions of the play, and I felt like some of it I'm getting and some of it I'm not. And then I came to this point of like, I don't like any of these modern translations. It just that I feel like I'm missing stuff. So I went to the first folio, and from that point forward, I never looked back, and I only have been reading the first folio. And I think from my naive position, I think that you have to include everything, even the grammar, any mistakes, that they're all important, and they're in the first folio. And if you change all that, then there's all kinds of hidden stuff that gets lost in modern translations. Okay? So I'm reading one Folgers edition, and it's when Bottom wakes up and he's saying some stuff, and someone wrote, this is in my high school book, and it says their explanation was, well, he's just waking up, so that's why he doesn't make any sense. And I was thinking that's stupid. Like when he's talking about I'll do it at her death, I was thinking, well, he's talking about Thisbe's death. If someone dies in the play at the end, that's what he's talking about later on. But this explanation to a high school kid that I'm within the book that I'm reading said, he's just woozy because he's not making any sense. Another one had a whole lamenting thing about how we'll never hear Bottom's ballad. What a bummer that we'll never get to hear the ballad of
Bottom's Dream.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I threw all those editions out the window, and I'm looking at the first folio, and you tell me what this word is.
A ballet.
He doesn't say a ballad. He says a ballet.
Yes.
A ballet was invented back then, and it was known for pointing, feet pointing. So it's all the more of John the Baptist pointing. De Vere is pointing us. He starts out saying, let's bring it to a point. And then midway through, he's like, got a whole troop of people pointing.
Whenever I produce this play, I always have Bottom say, I will get Peter Quince to write me a ballet of this dream. And it should be called A Midsummer. No. Bottom's Dream.
Okay. So then let's take this a step farther. Okay. He says, I'll sing it at the end of a play. So we're thinking the end of this play, but it says I thought, what if he's talking about a different play? And the first thing I went to was Troilus and Cressida.
You're going to pull in Troilus and Cressida now?
I am, yes.
Okay.
Okay. So there is a little thing at the end of this play. Okay. And if you go to it,
it is the other play set in Greece.
So what he talks about, De Vere gives a little game plan here.
Well, Troy, technically.
So now, when did this come out? This came out when Queen Elizabeth died. And he says in here, give me 2 months. I needed 2 months more. And what happens within those 2 months? That's when the King's Men troop starts. Okay? So if you put this into a grid, now I've put everything in this book in grids, and I'm not going to go into all those details for now, but I'll just go into this one. So if you put Troilus and Cressida in a grid of 102 words across. HW appears 9 times.
Okay.
He would have been Henry the Ninth. And we have HW 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's a 9. So just a coincidence? And look, it says other things like hate, loathe, Cecil, things like that pop up in there. It's interesting. I don't know if you want to get into grids, but I saw that some people were like, maybe don't go there with the grids, but I think the thing is soaked in passages.
It is becoming one of the most prevalent areas of study right now are what we would call codes or anagrams or numerology. That type of thing is becoming more and more prevalent on both sides of the ocean with regards to scholars who are digging deeper and deeper, and most specifically into the first folio on this topic. And it's interesting that you would point out that, Henry Wriothesley, if those of us who believe that he is the true son of Edward de Vere and Queen Elizabeth, you're correct. He would have become King Henry the Ninth. And that's a very interesting little scenario you have there, especially because Troilus and Cressida is that very mysterious play that is inserted right into the middle of the folio. Yeah. It is not in the table of contents, and the pages are not numbered.
There's 2 pages that are numbered. There's 2 pages that have numbers. Okay. There's 79 and a page 80.
Yes.
Okay. So if you add them together, 79 and 80, you get 159. What's 159? It's the next page in Midsummer Night's Dream after he wakes up, where they say he's got to show up. Pyramus has got to show up.
So you're saying Troilus and Cressida is Bottom's dream?
The end of yes. I don't think that. What's the odd ending here? I bequeath you, and with that I bequeath you my diseases, but maybe it's die to C's. My 2 C's of the sonnets and the folio.
Interesting.
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I'm really out on my own with a kite without a string out here, making these theories up.
Well, you know what I want to tell you, Blair, that's super important, and I know that audiences right now that are listening, folks, one of the great themes of this program is, I say it over and over and over again, we need to be asking these questions, and there is no such thing as a stupid question. That's how you get to answers, or that's how in science you eliminate opportunities or aspects or things that you chase down a rabbit hole and then discover there's no rabbit in that hole. But the only way to know whether there's a rabbit in the hole or not is somebody has to dig. And so one of the things I'll tell you, Blair, that's super important. One, I'm sitting here and I'm just like feeling 2 different major emotions right here. One is this extreme sense of pride in having played whatever small part that I in this podcast have played in your journey. And 2, a sense of sympathy that, oh my God, you poor man, you have been bitten by this bug so badly. And you're never going to be done. You're going to be chasing this mystery like the rest of us for the end of your days. And I think that's a fabulous thing. And I hope that what it's doing is it's inspiring other listeners who also do not come from a literary background or do not come from a scholarly background. But I could tell you some of the people I have the greatest amount of respect for that I have met through the Shakespeare authorship question and through the Oxfordian movement are people who did not come from a scholarly background, who did not come from a literary background, who came to it from engineering or writing or theater or architecture or, project management or whatever it is that they did for a living or that they did throughout their years and in their lives before they became able to pursue this further and become, now the new scholars of Oxfordianism and of the world. Some of the greatest works written on this subject have been written by those who don't have all those letters after their name, all those PhDs and all that stuff, but who are just as passionate about it as you and I are, and just as smart, and can do research and know how to read and follow through with what it is that they're learning. So kudos to you, my friend. And I'm excited about how this is all going to play out in your movie.
Do we have a minute for one more thought?
We sure do. Yes.
Okay. So I'll cap it with this one. Again, I'm not telling everything, but so when I was doing the play, I was really bothered by the play within the play of Midsummer Night's Dream. I kept thinking, this doesn't feel right. It feels like it doesn't feel right. And then I started looking at it as, what if there's a double meaning here? Like, what if you can laugh at it, but you're like the people in the play, like they're Greeks, like laughing at Jesus or something. And what if there's a different way of looking at it where you're horrified at the play within the play and that it's terrible? Just go with me. Okay.
Well, it is terrible. It's supposed to be terrible. That's the point. These guys suck. They're the worst actors
not
ever.
That kind of terrible.
Oh,
a different kind of terrible.
Okay.
So, you and I was saying to my actors, like, I don't like this. And they were looking at me like, you're an idiot. You're gonna take it out or something, right? And I was like, yeah, it's not. There's something else going on here, and it was really needling me for a while. And so then that's when I came up with the idea, part down the road of if we follow the chakras up, then the play within the plane is brain, and we've got the right brain trying to speak to left brain, and there's a
through the hole in the wall.
Yeah. So I was reading. I was like, there's got to be something else out there that can prove my point of what's going on in Edward de Vere's brain in this mapped out way of looking at the play. And I was combing through a lot of earlier Renaissance literature. And then I heard about a book called Blancara by a guy named Raymond Lull. And this is the 1200s, okay? And the book has a play within the play. Raymond Lull wrote about knights and chivalry and how to conduct yourself. And he went to the Crusades and tried to convert people to Christianity. And he wrote this book called Blancara that has a book within the book. And I just knew. I was like, this is I already know. I know somewhere in this is. So the book within the book has all these kind of it's like troubadour stuff where like they're talking. He's trying to talk to God, but they show it as a woman, that he's writing love stories poems to a woman and things to a woman figure, but it's really spirituality we're talking about. Okay, and I reach a certain page and I read Over Hill and Dale in this book from hundreds of years earlier, and I scream because I think that's a Shakespeare line in this book. I know it. I know I'm right.
Over hill, over dale, I do wander everywhere, swifter than the moon's
You can
sphere.
see it right here, Over Hill and Dale. Okay,
yes, uh-huh.
So now this guy's not associated with Shakespeare. So then I'm like, there's going to be and so there's this guy who's trying to find his girl, and she's like unreachable. Okay, and he's experiencing all this pain, and they're out like in the wilderness, and now in the Shakespeare play, what do we got? The guy playing the lion, and we got the guy holding the lantern. The lantern,
yes,
the moon. Now he's not the moon; he's a man holding a lantern that's the moon.
Right.
Okay, like the hermit card. Okay, what's in the next paragraph? They run into a hermit. I'm screaming like, "There's gonna be a lion in a second! There's gonna be a lion in a second!" Next page, a lion shows up. There's no question in my mind.
So the question I have is this Blancara, what was it originally written in? Was it written in Latin?
I don't know if it's Latin or Spanish.
Okay. Who was the guy? Who was the author?
Raymond Lull. And
spell his last name?
L-L-U-L-L.
Interesting.
And
so we don't know. You don't know. We haven't done any research into who he is and where he came from and what the original work was written in, because my guess is the original work was not written in English. It was written in the 1200s. And if it was, it would have been like Chaucer's English, right? It would have been rough.
It wouldn't have been in English. I don't believe it was in English.
So he was either that sounds like it might have been a French name.
So
Raymond Lull, and if he was a crusader, I'm going to guess, I'm going to have to do some research now, but I'm going to guess that he was a French crusader and it may have been originally in French. The point being is it had to have been in a language that only an educated person would have been able to read, let alone get access to a copy of that book. But it does sound like you have identified a source.
Yes.
For
I feel confident.
Pyramus and Thisbe in.
Well, Pyramus and Thisbe is
in
from
A Midsummer
Ovid.
Night's Dream.
Pyramus and Thisbe is originally from Ovid, but this is another layer stamped on the same situation.
And it sounds like our guy lifted a few lines here and there from Lowell.
But I don't think he was stealing. I think that he was referencing and pointing because he's pointing to things. De Vere's pointing in this play, excuse me. And so this is about chivalry and national character and how to be. Like this character rises to become the Pope, and then he goes off from there. And so I think that all that's going on in De Vere's head when he's writing Midsummer Night's Dream. Like he's creating this. The Queen is this part of it is a roadmap.
Well, and he definitely had a strong affinity for, old world feudalism and chivalric code and what it meant to be a courtier. And that's evidenced not only through his own writings, but also the books that he owned and was in possession of, and other works that were dedicated to him as well. And then, of course, you have Cardanus's Comfort, and then you have Castiglione's Courtier. All of these swirl around De Vere. And so this sounds like it just fits into that puzzle quite well. And now this is a great area to do some additional research. This is something that you could put together and deliver a paper or a presentation to Oxfordians about.
Well, I actually wrote the society and asked if I could speak on this whole thing in September, and they said no.
Oh, really?
But but my pitch was like, I got this great stuff, but I can't tell you what it is. You just have to trust me that some of it's great stuff. And they were like, yeah, it sounds great, but you didn't tell us anything, so no. But if you can pull a string, I'll come back.
So they rejected you because you didn't give them enough detail?
Because I'm giving you're the first person I'm talking to about any of this.
Well, see, this is one of the issues that I have with some of the arbitrary nature in the way that research is either accepted, allowed, or stifled or suppressed by the Shakespeare Oxford Fellowship. There is like this small elite group who gets to decide who gets to present and who doesn't get to present. And it's very arbitrary. I've been a member of that group. I've been a member of that committee and heard some of the debates and conversations that they've had. And it seems there does not seem to be a specific standard as to who is selected and why. And sometimes it just has to do with, are you friends with the right people? Are you going to say things that backs up their research and the stuff that they believe? Or are you going to say things that challenge what they believe? And this is one of the things that I really want to change. And it's one of the reasons why I have submitted myself for president of the organization, because these are the changes that need to be made. There needs to be more transparency in this process. There needs to be more accessibility in this process. We need to stop playing favorites and stop the cult of personality politics that have permeated the organization, because yes, they don't know you. Yes, they don't know the quality of your research. Instead of a no, they could have easily sent back with, that we have some questions, or we'd like to call you on the phone and talk to you, or do a Zoom meeting with you about what it is that you're proposing. And we'd like to learn more before we decide and just shut you down. But there's too much of that shutting down going on, and has been going on for too long. It's time to make a change.
Well, I'll vote for you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And I hope that the rest of you who are listening will also vote for me. I can tell you this. I have recently learned that mail-in ballots will be sent to every member of the Shakespeare Oxford Fellowship. In the next quarterly newsletter, you will see campaign statements from me and from the other contender for president, who is also a big favorite of this program, Dr. Earl Showerman. So I'm in great company. You will be able to read our backgrounds as well as our platforms and make your comparison in the quarterly newsletter. And then I am told you will all be receiving in the mail a mail-in ballot that you will then fill out and mail back in. You will have to place your own stamp on it. especially with the cost of postage, it would be burdensome for the organization to provide everyone with pre-stamped envelopes. So, but I think it's worth your 60 cents or whatever it is now for a postage stamp to have a voice. And those ballots, I am told, will be collected at the post office box in Auburndale, Massachusetts, where they will be sent. They will be transported by hand to Ashland, Oregon in September for the SOF conference, and they will be counted by 3 independent counters at the conference in Ashland, and the winner will be announced at the SOF annual meeting, which is part of the annual conference. So that's what the process has been decided. It sounds very fair and thorough to me. Of course, it will be dependent on all of you receiving your mail-in ballot in the mail, checking it off, and mailing it back in. And we'll find out what the results will be in September. But all I can tell you is watch for the quarterly newsletter so you can read all about what I stand for, what Earl stands for, and make an informed and educated decision. But I think those of you who've been listening for a while know that I stand for change. I stand for transparency. I stand for a plan, clear-cut goals, and a proper capital campaign to raise the funds to achieve those goals with transparency to the organization on how that money is being spent. That's basically where I'm coming from. And allowing people like Blair to come to the conference and make a presentation. I mean, even if, I don't care if we have to set up a certain day, maybe it's the Thursday night or it's the Friday morning or it's whatever portion of the conference for newbies, for new people who are new to this, who are give them a chance, give them a shot at a 30-minute presentation. How else are they going to get better at it? How else are we going to find little nuggets that maybe other scholars want to dive into or look into? Why not a thorough, invigorating Q&A session? Why not debates? Why are we so afraid of the conversation? I could tell you what I have found in 3 years of producing this podcast, and I think what you're going to find too, Blair, with your film, is that people want to be invited to the conversation. They want to be invited to the debate. They want to hear why it's a succession issue or why it's not, why it's based in bisexuality or why it's not, why it's a bastard child or why it's not. They want to engage in the conversation. Don't you?
Oh yeah, I really appreciate you having me come out here. It's kind of changed my life in this hour because it's really a trial by fire. I thought I'm either gonna mess up or this is gonna be exciting, and so thank you for giving me this opportunity.
No, thank you for coming all the way out from Pennsylvania, folks, just to see me here in little old Southern Oregon and be a part of the program. Of course, I also had the pleasure. It was a kill 2 birds with one stone because Blair interviewed me for his film, and I'll be excited to see the final cut and whether or not I actually end up on the cutting room floor or somewhere in the movie. But it's been a great pleasure to meet you face to face, to have you as part of the program, and to hear some of your early research and some of the things that you've touched on. I'm telling you, the John the Baptist thing, maybe somebody else has done something on it. I haven't been around. I've been around for almost 2 decades, so it could be that that's old news, quote unquote, that somebody's already studied it thoroughly up and down and already given a presentation at some point in the past. But I'll tell you, the chakra stuff and the Hindi stuff, I don't think anyone's really touched on that.
No, I haven't been able to find it and I've really looked, and I haven't been able to find it anywhere. So
and like you said, some of these people aren't tuned in to look for that type of thing, the mysticism of it or the world religions aspect of it. And so they just flies right over their heads, literally. But I think you're really, really onto something. I can't wait for my wife to hear this episode and then to hear her feedback. And she's going to want to call you on the phone. She'll be like, hey, I want to talk more about this, because that's her background.
You can use this immediately. I wanted you to sit on it till December, but this has been so exciting for me to be pushed out in the spotlight that just whatever you do with it is fine with me.
Well, you
can put it out whenever.
Well, as we are recording this in the middle of July, and as July's episodes are already scheduled, this will be the August episode. And those of you listening, you already know that because you're listening.
The film's name is The Kingdom of Enchantment. That's the name of my feature film, which will be out next year for the first portfolio
And
anniversary.
if we want to learn more about you, Blair, where can we go? Is there a website? Is there something
Yes.
else?
Yes, but it's very Ed Wood and wacky.
Great.
If you go to
People love that. I have a lot of nerds listening to this program, you know.
Okay, well, I left Los Angeles and I bought this giant hotel in Pennsylvania called the Grand Midway Hotel. So if you go to grandmidwayhotel.com, that has everything.
Okay, and is that a place where we might be able to produce something like Sleep No More? Are you familiar with that production?
We were going to do Frankenstein, actually. That was what the actors wanted to do next.
Yeah.
So, but I'm so, yeah, you can. I got to finish this film first.
I've played the creature. It's one of my
Yeah,
favorite. It's
I
one
saw.
of the favorite roles I've ever played.
Yeah.
It's such a remarkable, touching, gripping,
Yeah.
a human role, which is the beauty of it, right? And I played it. The first time I played it, I was going through chemotherapy, and my hair was coming out in clumps.
Yeah.
And I was yellowish in color and gaunt and losing weight. My veins were protruding out of my arms, and I felt like a creature. I really did. And it was one of the most therapeutic experiences as I was going through chemotherapy, fighting cancer. And I think it literally helped me to compete, to combat cancer,
Right.
and to win, was to stay involved in my art, continue doing what I love to do, and to choose projects that helped me sort of emotionally deal with all that I was going through at the time.
Right.
And it's a great role. I loved that role.
Wow.
My hair was coming out in clumps, and the actor, who was a friend of mine, he played Victor,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we had quite a height difference because I'm 6'4".
Yeah. Yeah.
He's about 5'9", I think. So it was a perfect height difference. And as my hair started coming out in clumps as we led up to opening night, I said, it's time to do something about this. So he sat me down in the chair and got the clippers, and he shaved my head except for a couple of spots. We left a few tufts,
Right.
which made it look even creepier, right? It looked like my head. And then the way he used the prosthetics and the makeup and he would create me every night, which was also a really cool part of the process.
Yeah.
Because I would sit in the makeup chair and it would take him about an hour and a half to convert me into the creature. And, we would go over lines together while he was doing it. And it was a great process for getting ready for curtain, but he would do the stitching and whatnot. So it looked like that parts of my head came from different bodies with these tufts of hair. And it was pretty creepy. I've never looked so good.
Right. That's such a wild place to come at that character from. I mean, unfortunate and fortunate, fantastic, all in the same.
Well, I'm 20 years cancer free, so it all worked, which is great. But I'm thinking about your hotel there in Pennsylvania, and there's a great production that was in New York called Sleep No More, and it's an interactive production of Macbeth, where they kind of take different scenes and different pieces of it. It's not the full play. And you follow the actors around this old warehouse, I think is where it was set, and live it with them, kind of a thing. And I'm wondering if we could do something similar at your hotel.
Oh yeah, it's not it's a private home. It's not an open hotel, so you can do anything you want there. You can like anything.
Cool. Well, I might be visiting Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Yeah, I like to meet your actors.
Well, thank you, everyone. It's been a real pleasure. Genuinely, thank you so much.
Thank you, Blair. And I want to remind you all once again, please visit don'tquillthepodcast.com. Don'tquillthepodcast.com. Even your $5 a month pledge helps to keep the programs coming and helps to pay our expenses and provide our bonus content as well. Don't forget the bonus content drawer is growing, and we will be this month that this episode is airing, sending to you our recording of Venus and Adonis as a 3-person audio play, and that will be the August bonus feature. Super excited about that, so watch for that to drop. And remember, if you want to reach me, contact at don'tquillthepodcast.com, contact at don'tquillthepodcast.com. Send me your suggestions, your comments, your criticisms. I love to hear from you. And as you learned earlier in the episode, I do answer every email. I promise I do. Sometimes it takes me a little while, but I do get to every single one of them. You are valuable to me. I hope this podcast is valuable to you. And until we meet again, ladies and gentlemen, say it with me out loud so that everyone around you can hear it. Keep asking questions.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, please leave a rating and review in your podcast player. For even more, visit our website, don'tquillthepodcast.com. There you can find official merchandise in our shop, as well as a link to our Patreon. This show is made possible by people like you. We hope you'll consider showing your support by becoming a monthly patron, where you'll receive bonus material and tons of exclusive perks. You can also join in the conversation on our Discord and by following us at Don't Quill the Pod on all social media. All of this can be found at don'tquillthepodcast.com, don'tquillthepodcast.com.
It's Dragon Wagon.